He's Lincoln for.
Yeah. Hey, Philip.
There you go.
Go out.
All right, guys. When you take over. All right. We've got our live stream running. Welcome everyone. This meeting is being held here in the supper room by Hinga Centre. It's being live streamed and will be available on the council's YouTube channel. All members participating via audio-visual conference will count for the purposes of a meeting quorum in accordance with clause 25B of Schedule 7 of the Local Government Act 2002, but I don't think that's necessary today. I think we have a full attendance. The affirmation. Councillor Fox, would you like to read the affirmation?
With pleasure. We pledge that we will faithfully and impartially use our skill, wisdom and judgment throughout discussions and deliberations ahead of us today in order to make responsible and appropriate decisions for the benefit of the South Wairarapa district at large. We commit individually and as a council to the principles of integrity and respect and to upholding the vision and values we've adopted in our long-term plan strategic document in order to energise, unify and enrich our district.
Thank you, Councillor Fox. Before we start proceedings, I'm going to request that we have a standing 1 minute silence for the death of the Queen, and then we'll proceed with the council meeting. Thank you, everyone. Apologies. Do we have any apologies? I'm not aware of any. Conflicts of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest to clear?
Yes, Alex, D2, I have a conflict regarding the Wairarapa Combined District Plan. Second thing, yeah.
Thank you. Acknowledgements and tributes. Do we have any acknowledgements apart from Her Majesty the Queen?
Tēnā koutou. I wanted to pay tribute to Whaia Teresa Aparo, who passed away suddenly. And I just wanted to acknowledge her tireless work with the Māori Standing Committee over many years, with rangatahi throughout Wairarapa, but so many various ways. Her representation with the Māori Women's Welfare League, all of the work that she's done as a kaitiaki to the land, with all of the plantings around the Wairarapa Moana and right throughout the South Wairarapa district, and her guidance that she provided, not just to council, but to many of us as mana whenua for this area. Kia ora.
Thank you. I'd also add to that as well with her constant work on Ngāti Hikawera and making sure that their name was still forefront within the area of the Pamela.
Alex, I'd like to acknowledge the Martinborough School. celebrating their 150 years this weekend. It's a huge milestone for our school, and it's a tribute to all the headmasters and teachers that it has continued through these years. It was a wonderful celebration, and it was really lovely to see friends we hadn't seen for years coming back to enjoy the weekend.
It was quite a big reunion over the weekend too.
Very much so.
It was, and it was good that they involved the whole community in that, with the market and things like that they held. I think it was really awesome.
I'd also like to acknowledge the tragic accident in Wellington and the family loss from Deputy Mayor Eames, and do pass your our condolences to your brother. Any further acknowledgements or tributes? Public participation, Greytown Cenotaph. Welcome, and Brent, like to come up.
Where do you want us?
Just sit there.
Grab another chair up.
I was lucky enough to see a presentation of the Greytown Community Board. But I think you have 5 minutes to talk, and questions of clarification from councillors. So it's all yours.
Thank you very much. My introduction, I'm Bryce Gurney, I'm President of the Greytown RSA. And thanks for the opportunity to come and present this to this model. What we're trying to do with our purpose being here is to socialise a new cenotaph that we're planning for Greytown, to create a single point of focus for commemoration of the local community currently we have too. And our intent is to seek your endorsement, the council's endorsement, to support what we are doing here. This is important because before we partake in fundraising, we need community support, which we are gaining, and obviously council support. The intent is that we create an asset, not a liability, for our community, and in doing so, we will be seeking to fundraise sufficient to not only build the memorial, the cenotaph, but to commit funds in trust for the enduring maintenance and upkeep of the cenotaph. Again, not to create a liability for the community, but an asset. Brent.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Brent Watson. I'm chairman of the RSA subcommittee for the construction of the cenotaph. We've had quite a lot of consultation with the council and Bryce Neems, who was formerly responsible for parks. We looked at several locations and have now come up with the concept, as you can see in the handout, putting the cenotaph adjacent to the memorial swimming pool. The cenotaph will be very simple in design. It will be 2 block walls covered in granite. In the centre will be a glass section with the ode in Te Reo and English. Some of you that are old hands with Greytown will remember it was a 25-pounder in the park. Well, that has been lovingly restored by a group in Wellington, and we're putting it on display to the right of the cenotaph to add significance. We've also discussed the issue with the CEO, the council, who has very generously granted us a waiver of for any building consent. We are ready to apply formally for a building consent. We will be liaising with a vast variety of organisations and communities, including Papua Marae, to gain support for the project. That what we earnestly seek today is your endorsement for the cenotaph, and we will be starting our campaign for fundraising, and we would very much appreciate a written council endorsement, because we will be seeking endorsement from a wide variety of organisations for the project. We were advised about this by the person who chaired the committee to raise the Featherston Camp Memorial. Are there any questions?
Kia ora, thank you very much for coming and presenting. Am I assuming right that the cenotaph would be the memorial gathering place for like your RSA events?
Yes, that was our major thought when we started out. We haven't really got a focal point for Anzac Day. We're noticing now that there's a lot more support for Anzac Day. For example, this year, we could only held one at the last minute due to the COVID restrictions. And it was really heartening to see a large amount of teenagers attending, not with their parents, but just they've come along to commemorate Anzac Day. We've also initiated Armistice Day memorials in Greytown, which is also done in other centres.
Actually, I apologise through you, Mr. Chair. I am on the secretary of the Featherston RSA, but have you considered going to the national office for support funding or whatever that sort of thing?
So we have,
Yes.
we're being very deliberate in our approach to doing this. We don't want to be seeking any funding support yet. We want to gain the buy-in of the community and the support from the community. And we will be very deliberate about how we fund this activity through community applications for grants, etc., with the view that nothing will start until we have funding. So we don't want to, the worst thing we could do is be partway through something and run out of funding. So we are being very deliberate. And that includes our management and then setting up a governance board to look after it as well.
I was just thinking that perhaps support letters from surrounding RSAs could also count towards a lot. And I think they're really great for you to come up to see that line.
So this has been socialised at National RSA with the CEO and the current president, and will be socialised with the new president. As well.
Councillor Rolls.
So a couple of quick questions. One is the location. Specifically, why was that location chosen? Was that the only location available, or you saw that?
There was originally thought we could put it adjacent to the roadway, towards in line with the memorial trees. However, for a variety of reasons, mainly damage caused to it from the trees, would need ongoing maintenance. And the architects who have designed it also understand designing a whole revamp of the complex around the swimming pool, and have done it so that it doesn't conflict or obstruct any waterways or anything of that nature.
Okay, and the design was my next question. Was the design consulted on amongst your membership, or was it something that's generic? Or
essentially, several years ago, an original plan was drawn up by the RSA.
Yep.
However, when we took over the project about 18 months, 2 years ago, the plans were not complete enough to get current building consent, and B, the costs would have been prohibitive. So after a lot of discussion, I will admit I was, from my own point of view, I was very influenced by the wall in Washington. And with just a black granite, well, we can't afford, of course, to put it in solid granite like the wall. But this design was come up with after a lot of consultation. Bryce, for example, saw the SAS memorial in Papakura military camp, which is very much in line with this black granite.
excellent. Thanks very much.
Thanks. I've got a couple at the moment. So I get to see where you're going with the focal point now being around there, looking at previous Anzac days. It's a logical place to put it. What will the relevance be of the current World War I memorial, which is slightly further down Kurtapedi Street? We wouldn't want to lose the relevance of that, and so how is that going to be incorporated in the design?
But as you're aware, that whole area, the Soldiers Park, is about the commemorating of those who have served and paid the ultimate sacrifice. Currently, our Anzac Day start at in the car park in front of the memorial bars, and we move along Kuratawhiti Street. We stop at the World War One gates.
Yeah.
The long-term aim is that we would probably start at the World War One gates and move from there to the car park and actually hold the service in that location at the new cenotaph. So we maintain the significance of the World War One gates and that memorial, and it be incorporated into the service as a whole. So the whole service would happen in that area rather than start there and then move as we do at present to the South Wairarapa.
And the other one, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but there's being a new memorial, it's not bound by the Historic Places Trust. So there is room for missing names to be added to this war memorial from around our district, because it's a real problem to get extra names added.
Yes, it's focused obviously on Greytown, but it is contemporary. An important part of the design of this is that it's designed for today, so it's contemporary. Okay.
And so you're wanting a resolution of a formal letter of support for this from the council.
Yes.
Pam.
Through you, Worship, could I ask, the way I read this is that you're focusing on World War One and World War Two. Your membership of the RSA includes people who have been in other conflicts throughout the area. How are you incorporating those that have fallen in those instances, as well as
When we,
future conflicts?
yes, when we commence our wider consultation, we're going to invite anybody or group that have known of a family member or somebody who has fallen in a conflict, and they can provide us with the details. We'll give earnest consideration to that. As you're probably aware, New Zealand has had fallen troops since the South African War, and we still have a lot of overseas deployments today, and the last from memory died in Afghanistan. Now, if any of those came from Greytown, we would gladly put them up, because we want this cenotaph to be contemporary and have significance for a wide variety of people.
Yep. I really should know the answer to this question, but I don't. So those that potentially died after the war but of war wounds, how do they fit into this?
That's a very...
I should know the answer to this, but I don't.
New Zealand's rather unique. After the First World War, we set a date for war dead, and then we brought it back several months to be in line with everyone else. Unfortunately, those rulings have never really been revised, and also it doesn't take into account, you use the word wounds, those that suffered mentally and committed suicide in a lot of cases. It's something we can't put right now, and probably the records will be non-existent. It's just an awful fact of war.
Yeah, can I just add to that? We take our guidance from the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, and something that, and this is why consultation is very important. It's quite emotive, and there are quite strict guidelines on culture and heritage around what memorials can be and how they are presented and what is on those. So our intent is that any statements, wording will be very generic. And I'll use the word vanilla, but I mean that in the sense that not specific on any one focus, any one conflict, or that it encompasses all. But we will be doing it obviously in consultation, not only with the community, but also RSA headquarters, but also culture and heritage for the government, because it's important that we get it right.
Great.
Just one brief. I did see on one cenotaph, the little footnote at the bottom, it said, "Not all wounds bleed." And getting back to your point about the mental stress on. Yeah,
Look, thank you. I've seen all the iterations over time. It's really great to see it coming to fruition.
Yeah.
And in Nessa's from public participation, we'll just discuss that formal letter of support. Okay.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
thanks, guys. Yep.
So from that, since we have no other public participation, so actions, would someone like to propose that we would like to discuss whether or not we want to have a.
I think we, yeah, absolutely,
Oh,
absolutely.
so we're all happy with that. So, so if someone will propose that we write a formal letter of support for the Cenotaph proposal to be given to the Greytown RSA.
Very happy to propose.
Your worship, sorry, just before we sign off on that, it would be quite nice to have a report from a council officer on the location and the layout. I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of work done around the discussion side of it, but
That will be an ancillary one. What we're doing is supporting the
Okay.
creation one, but certainly location and content and everything
Yep.
will come to us at a
Okay.
future date. So seconded by councillor Hay. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, the motion is carried. A6, extraordinary business. Do we have any extraordinary business? No? Moving on. A7, community boards and the Māori Standing Committee reports on the meetings. I don't think we have any chairs on the community board. So we'll then move to A8. The minutes from the 10th of August 22 and the 24th of August 22. Do we have any corrections required from those minutes? Just 1 second while I bring that up.
Just the adding of my name to the 24th of August. I'm not quite sure. Has that been updated? Was that updated publicly or?
An email about that, so. Okay, so that has been amended on
It has, yeah.
paper minutes, but not through Stella yet.
It's on staff.
On Stella.
It is on Stella, great. So if that's all, do we have a move that the minutes and public excluded minutes of the council meeting held on the 10th of August, the 24th of August 2022 are a true and accurate record? Thank you, Councillor Fox, seconded Councillor Jepson. All those in favour, please say aye.
Right.
Those against, it's carried. So B1 recommendations from the committees and community boards. Do we have a mover to receive B1 minutes of council committees and community boards? Moved Councillor Maynard, seconded Councillor Colenso. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, motion is carried. So are there any comments on any of the minutes of the community board or committees?
Just one amendment, which I did discuss with Amy on the Planning and Regulatory Committee. I'm not noted as a member of that committee, so that should just be changed.
Anything else?
No.
Good. So do we have a mover for recommendations 2 through 8 as read? Thank you, Councillor West, seconded. Councillor Eames. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, motion is carried. So now we go on to C1, risk and resilience strategy.
9 page. Did you read it all?
So I'd like to see one, the risk and resilience strategy report. Do we have a mover to receive the report? Thank you, Councillor Old, seconded Councillor Maynard. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, the motion is carried. Bradley, would you like to take us through this?
Some of you hopefully will remember that we conducted a couple of workshops with Melanie, our climate change advisor, a few months ago, and she worked us through all the risks that the organisation held on our property and assets. And we had lots of discussion about whether or not we agreed with those risks. We had some of our staff here as well to help with the operational kind of perspective, those risks and the mitigations that we currently had in place. And this is the result of those workshops, the work that she's put in to write up this report. She would be here herself, but I believe she's on a plane back from France
Yeah.
today as we speak. She couldn't even remote call in because no internet on a plane. So she's left me to present it, and I am not a climate change expert. So if you've got specific questions about any of the technical aspects of the report, I can give them to her. She's coming in next week. You will also know that she has resigned her position and is going to Wellington Regional Council to hold a similar role. So we will still have a really close relationship with her. She'll still be probably involved in our thinking about our response to climate change, but just in a different role. And we're working with Carter on her. But she will be coming back, and I can get her to respond to any particular technical questions that you have.
Thank you. It's I do remember the workshops, and they were very in-depth, moving into areas that we hadn't considered. But it's really important to put them forward as being the risks that we need to be mindful of as a council. Tippy.
Just on that, I think that we need to acknowledge the work that Melanie has done for us, because when the Regional Climate Change Committee or group was set up, Carterton and South Wairarapa were ahead of the other district councils, and it was down to the work that Melanie has done. And
Yeah, totally.
I really think that she's put us on a good footing, and her role now with the regional council will only enhance that.
Yep.
I'd just like to acknowledge that as well, what Jebby said. It's a very comprehensive and highly technical document, and it's something that I spent some time when it was sent out last week trying to absorb a lot of it. There are a lot of things in there that probably Melanie would be able to answer for us. And can I suggest that while we'll probably endorse this today, is that at some stage in the near future that we have a workshop, or the council has a workshop to actually go through the finer points of this as a.
I think our new councils are going to have to do that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Coming up to speed with.
Yep.
So,
That is enough.
yeah,
Excellent.
Councillor West.
But the thing that really drove it home for me is that this is actually a council focused paper, and it's a great start for us, and then we can move on to how we involve our community and what they can do to contribute. It'll be really good to see this document in 5-10 years' time to see how we're doing, and if the numbers might step up, or if they're a lot worse or a lot better than what we actually anticipated. And I think, I don't know if this is already, I'm assuming this has already been done, heartfelt thanks to Melanie to be passed on. But there are some other technical questions, and I agree that perhaps we need to have those discussions further. Where can we send our questions to?
If you email your question, if you email them to me, I can pass them on to Melanie.
Yep.
So I've got a meeting with her scheduled for Tuesday or Thursday. Off the top of my head, I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, just keep us informed of Melanie's replacement.
Yes.
Has there been thought to this being a Wairarapa wide as opposed to just a two council initiative, or is Masterton doing its own thing in this space?
Masterton have got their own resource dedicated.
It would make. Have we investigated, because we are one climate,
No, they had.
and when you look at water resilience strategy and a lot of the other stuff which is being done through the whole three councils, it would make sense if we could.
Alex, I think I can answer that. Since Melanie's been on board, we have had a three council caucus every Monday, and we've discussed what's happening in government level, regional level, and what Marston come up with will be very much on the lines of what we've got.
Yeah,
it's very, very similar though. So I think, Melanie might be able to update you on that and get it back to the council.
Good. Thanks.
I mean, the key here is we all share a similar methodology. So this follows the Ministry of Health guidelines. And so all the councils follow the same
Ministry.
methodology.
Yep.
And we have some specific risks. But look, this is a very comprehensive report, identifies, gives us a sense of what's most important that we need to keep an eye on and how adequate our mitigation measures are towards those things. Yeah. And just bear in mind that this is the purpose of this report is about council business.
That's right, yeah.
And so this isn't about all the agricultural emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, those types of things through the wider district, but it is about council's business.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that we also have to recognise is that we need to be very cognizant of the fact that we're a rural area. And that's not necessarily one solution fits all scenario, i.e. coming from a city, a metro area, would actually fit with a community like ours. So I think we still need to kind of like hang on to our guns when it comes to decisions being made by a city. That makes sense.
Yep, I don't think. Cool.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. So, do we have a mover to adopt risk and resilience strategy? Thanks, Colin. Seconded, Councillor Jepson. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Those against, motion is carried. Now C2, the review of the revenue and finance policy. Do we have a mover to receive the report? Thank you, Councillor Fox, seconded Councillor Plimmer. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, the motion is carried. Miss Ashford, welcome. Speak to this report.
Yes, as we all know, good practice for us to review it through the finance policy every 10 years. And we have started the process from a first principles basis. And this process is required under the Local Government Act. So the first principles process takes about 12 months to complete. And we have just started and completed step 1, with step 2 to commence after the elections. So some of you were included and involved in the workshops for step 1. That the initial funding needs analysis. I think it's attached to the report. So that had to be completed in time for the local government elections, and the new council will confirm or amend that step before we move on to step 2. This work has been conducted independently by Philip Jones, who's a consultant in this area, and most of us know him very well.
Yep.
So this paper is his work in the workshops, and I think it's fair to say that it's been a very good initial workshop and process to understand how it works. So we have completed step 1, and until we have the next council, then we start step 2. Philip has put in his paper a timetable for what we can expect and what the next steps are, and I think, you know, from October, November, then this will start to increase our focus and attention on getting a rating review policy in place in conjunction with the annual plan for next year. So there is quite a bit of work to do for this around modelling, financial modelling, consultation, just checking everything that's included in this review. So it's a big piece of work.
Thank you, Ms. Ashford. It certainly builds on a 2018 very light look at the rating system. And I do recall the workshops days of line by line item wading through first principles, and you've got 13 points. The stages you need to go through. You're looking at public consultation in March and April. Are you looking to do that in conjunction with the annual plan or separate from the annual plan?
We have to do it in conjunction.
Yeah.
Because it could determine a different outcome from the annual plan. They have to be run in parallel.
Councillor West.
No, I'm just a bit perplexed about that because when this is the whole rates review, we're talking, isn't it?
I think it's really it's impossible.
So, but we're going to be adjusting the rates and how it's calculated. We're going to be adjusting the rates and how it's calculated.
This is the,
This is different.
This is a policy, it's nothing to do with
Policy,
the rate.
nothing to do with rate.
So we did go to the public and promise that we would do a review of the rating, the apportionment and how we rated and how we gather money. And this is part of that process in this financial year that we promised. Yeah. Amanda?
On your worship, the rating and revenue, what's it called?
Revenue finance.
Um,
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so it's the foundation. So it does form the foundation decision-making process.
And as we're a council with very few revenue sources, excluding rates, it's crucially linked to our revenue policy. So
So what I don't want it to do is overshadow any of our decisions for the annual plan. It won't.
And why is that?
For clarity,
Original. Foundation.
Sure.
the annual plan focuses on what we need to spend the money on.
Yeah.
The rates determine how that bucket of money is allocated to various parts of our community.
That's what we need to ensure
So
that.
that's why you need to do.
Councillor Old.
Just a very quick question. Is it council's intention to continue to retain Philip Jones to assist this council and the new council on the process? Yes, so that's the plan.
In this process, and his involvement after that is entirely up to his availability.
Oh, for sure, yeah. No, thank you.
But we've been able to schedule him, I mean, works right across New Zealand.
I think he's got 20
And so
councillors.
Yeah.
Very important to make sure we get someone who really is very, very experienced and.
For your worship, as part of approving the annual plan, there are a number of policies that had to be approved as part of that process under legislation. This is one of them. So it makes sense to do it in parallel.
How much?
Yeah, Councillor Plummer.
Yeah, Amanda, thank you. Could I get you just to step through where the council tick off at each process, part of this process? The concern I have is with a new council coming in, obviously we're ticking off part one today. That's going to have to be ratified by the new council today. Yes, we agree with that. And then when does the next council have on the 13-point plan, when do they have the ticks? Because it just concerns me that if there's going to be a significant number of new councillors. So to get them up to speed with this by March, April, and time for it to go out the annual plan seems to be quite a short time frame. I would have thought. Are we potentially setting the next council up to fail or not understand the process enough? So where's the tick off points for the new council where it sits?
So we have to use the special consultative process. So there will be formal consultation and hearings. So we'll need to set up a hearings panel for that purpose. And the hearings panel will report to council before anything's approved. There'll be, I think Karen's hit the nail on the head. This is a very large amount of work to be done in quite a short time frame.
So that is exactly my point. Is it worth? Are we trying to rush this process too much? Because this is the only chance we get for 10 years, basically. So do we want to actually allow the new council a bit more time? Because obviously you're going to be rushing between now and the new council coming on board now. If we were to slip this to give you more time, it will also give the new council more time.
Through you, your worship, I think that part of this decision making will be for the new council.
Yeah.
So I think if they look at the time frame and go, we actually can't achieve this, they'd be the ones to make that decision.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just sorry if I could just. This paper is recommending we endorse the timeframe you've come there. So for the new council, it's a yes, we accept that.
Oh no.
And my thing is, are we actually giving them the right advice to adopt that?
I think what you'd have to do is just raise at the induction and possibly the first meeting that are you comfortable with this pre-approved time frame? I mean, we're taking council officers' advice that this is doable
So what I'm hearing is it's challenging.
It's not necessarily doable. I just add some clarity. There's not a recommendation So the recommendations are to support step one.
Yes.
And step one is so under 3.11 expected time frame. That gives you an indication of what the outflow of the work step by step would be. But the key thing is it's up to the incoming council to agree or not agree with these assessments of how the benefits are distributed, because this is actually the crucial step in terms of following through to what the rating mechanisms are. This is actually where the benefits fall for particular activities of council. So this does not commit the new council to that time frame. It's simply asking you to consider step one, recognising that work has been completed, but it's up to the new council coming in to either accept or not accept it.
So your point's well made to keep it. Now, Amanda, you had something and then Councillor Jepson.
My head.
We'll come back to that. Councillor.
Thanks, but you got to remember, we did say to the ratepayers, we would undertake this review. The first stage, as Harry's just outlined, is to get it across the line. The content from here on out is up to the new council. They may choose not to, they may choose to go for it. But we're setting it up to give them the opportunity to follow through on it.
And I think we had that we quite clearly that we wanted to make the public wanted us to be sure that
Absolutely.
appropriate. Yeah. So,
And that's the first stage.
Councillor Fox.
It's just following on from that point really, and it's just the assurance for the new council that we have capacity to do the work. And what I'm hearing is that you do. And that really it'll be the direction that needs to be taken forward by the next council. I think it's a really good report.
Yeah.
I think it's really a nice timeline in place myself. And obviously there's development opportunities for the new council as they come in. But I think it's great, and
we can
to move with.
and we can put feedback on consultation of the annual plan anyway, rather than doing it halfway through, having a special consultative process. Yeah.
We can.
So you've remembered it.
Yes, it was much on what Councillor Jepson was saying around we've committed the public to do this engagement and this consultation in this period. And if we don't start and have a bit of a push, the opportunity we've got is the 30th of June.
Yep.
The new council has the 30th of June. If a decision isn't made by then, it's another 12 months.
Yep.
Fine. Cool. Right. With that, if we finished our questions, do we have a mover for two? And I will read them out. Having considered the initial assessment of the funding needs analysis, including any changes made at this meeting, we adopt the initial funding needs analysis included in Appendix 1 and recommend to the 2022-2025 Council that it considers the Step 1 results to confirm Step 1 analysis prior to commencing on the Step 2 review. Moved Councillor Fox, seconded Councillor Maynard. Good. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, the motion is carried.
Good work, guys.
Guys, oh, okay, we now move on to C3. Is the Featherston Master Plan Concept Option, Master Plan Development Detailed Design Report. Do we have a mover to receive the report? Thank you, Councillor Fox. Ems. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, the motion is carried. So Larry, would you like to speak to this report?
Yeah, good morning, councillors, on your last meeting of the year. Noting for you, we've got our key consultants in the background there, Lee Anderson and Richard Knott. The mission we have here is we seek endorsement on the preferred Featherston Master Plan Concept Option 1, remembering that there were two options, one significantly gained more support than the other. That concept option 1 being future development and intent around the existing train station, retaining the current location, the train station, as opposed to option 2 being seeking development through relocating the train to the main street. So that's where seeking the endorsement to take out as part of further work and shaping up a draft master plan going concept option 1 through that signal back from the community, as well as for councillors' consideration, approve vision 1 that was has been captured in the master plan work. Featherston being a thriving community of workers, families and creatives all supporting each other, to be included in the draft master plan for formal consultation later. Or else we can take out later on consideration vision 1, which I've just stated, vision 2, which is a site vision with the keywords Featherston, resilient, creative, caring, to be included in the master plan. So there's that second option means there'd be 2 visions taken out within the master plan work. Second recommendation is to approve concept option 1, as I've mentioned, intensification around the existing train station. That's what we're seeking, and for us to proceed, officers in line with our key consultants to proceed to draft master plan design stage. Third point, endorse 2 detailed design plans as priority work as part of the master plan. That is a detailed design of that pathway and link from the town centre to the rail station to achieve activation and potential in that along that strip, and a detailed design of the main street for future planning and urban outcomes there. I would like to point out the other thing that we've realised, just for councillors, seeking to add a recommendation 3.3, that this report be referred through to the Featherston Community Board for their meeting of the 29th of September for their information as part of ongoing link with the Community Board information shared.
So that recommendation is for information or comment?
For information.
Thank you.
As part of that, it's a continued link with the Community Board. That's what we do our work.
Right. I noticed we have and Richard online as well. Would we like to seek comment from Ree on your concept plan and the results of the consultation with the public and what your thoughts are on that? Because you've been inherent as part of this whole spatial plan work.
Thank you, and through the mayor, and good morning, everybody. It's nice to be with you again. In terms of concept 1, the majority of those who commented actually supported concept option 1, and there were different reasons for that. One of the reasons was that they felt that the train station was in a walkable distance anyway within the town. And the other, of course, was about unrelated costs and unknown costs. We had some advice from Kiwi Rail that, you know, those costs could be significant, including land.
Ree, I'm sorry, we lost connection there. So if you could start again, and welcome.
Sorry to have to repeat myself. Good morning, everybody. I was going to say, in terms of concept option 1, the majority of people supported that for 2 basic reasons. One is that the train station is relatively close proximity for walkable distance within the community anyway, and the other is the unknown cost of moving the rail station. And Kiwi Rail did advise us, for example, that land purchases would be required or potentially required if, you know, that train station moved. So we as a team are very comfortable to recommend to you concept option 1 as per the workshop that we had with yourselves. When Richard and I put our proposal in to undertake the master planning, that is master planning of the whole growth area that's defined in that concept plan. We also made sure that within that budget that we would have 2 detailed plans. And the reason we've suggested the pathway from the main street to the train station is because in the submissions that we received, people commented that there was an opportunity to really have a transformational pathway with a sculpture path and all of those sorts of things. And Mike Cullen in his economic review said we do need something in Featherston that's transformational. We've already identified in the foundation document the main street was a top priority, and that came back from the community as well. They want to see that enhanced, and not just in terms of things about beauty and planting and better paving and things, but also safety. So for example, where the bus stops are, where the pedestrian crossings are for school children. And so the idea is after you consider this report, and depending on, what concept option you decide on, we will have a further design direct with all the government agencies, and the likes of Greater Wellington Regional Council and Kiwi Rail, as well as government agencies, have been invited to that, such as Waka Kotahi. And that way we can coordinate the design with those agencies and understand the operational requirements, because that's absolutely critical. We've also had the opportunity to invite 2 Paetu Mokai representatives, and they have confirmed their attendance, because a question was asked by one of the councillors at the last workshop to make sure that we do ensure that there is full Māori engagement. So we're very comfortable with the recommendations that are being put forward for you today. There is a choice. We had a discussion on the vision, you might recall, at the workshop. And while there was good support for that vision within the foundation document, some suggested that it needed to be more aspirational. So the word thriving has been put into vision 1. And the words workers, families and creators actually came from one of your submitters. And one of the things about that is it tries to demonstrate what the personality of Featherston is, because people kind of talked about that and what the identity was. And it's really neat if we can reflect the language of the local residents. And the fact that, community was a very, very strong theme, and picking up Councillor Pam, your suggestion, rather than saying a thriving place, a thriving community, because, there is a very, very strong sense of community in Featherston. But we also are very cognizant that there was a choice to have a shorter vision, such as resilient, creative and caring. Our preference is vision 1, because we think it is more unique, even though the disadvantage is it's a bit longer, but it's more about the personality of Featherston. But you can either choose vision 1, or you can go out with both and let the community comment again. Either way, it's still a draft, and it's going to go out for formal consultation once the master plan is developed. So it's not going to be the final vision. There's more chance for the community to comment. So, we're not, whichever option you go for there is absolutely fine as well.
Thank you, Ree. Before I open up for comments, just one question regarding your engagement with iwi Māori and your reliance on Paetu Mokai, but have you engaged with Kahunui Marae with regards to their input, because it's part of their rohi?
No, we haven't through the mayor, because we were advised originally to start with Paetu Mokai. We're very cognizant of the difference between mana whenua and Māori. So we are cognizant to ensure that there are both parties that are involved in this engagement. And my belief is that we will be doing that as we move forward as well. So, but any further guidance that anyone would like to provide on that, we're very open and happy to proceed with whatever guidance is given.
I would certainly, and you might agree with me or not, but certainly you should reach out to Kahunui Marae.
Thank you. We shall do that.
As an official marae for the Featherston area.
We shall do that. Thank you.
Yep.
And so Karen's name has been misspelt in here. It's Mikaira. So we just need to make sure that we actually have that spelling, but we do have it correct on the Māori Standing Committee. So,
and it's just as a comment, it's nice to see that the railway station, I was surprised to see that option punted up, but it's good that we considered all options when we're talking about the long term view. Councillors, open for comment. Councillor Hayes.
Thank you. So Ree, and I've just got a quick question. Just looking at the numbers of the people who consulted and came back to you, are you comfortable that those numbers are good enough to reflect the decisions in this option 1? That's what it's approved.
And look, I think Kendall might like to comment on this, because outside of those who put in submissions, and also acknowledging that some of those who put in submissions are organisations, and so they represent more than one party, really, they represent people. But Kendall and Russell both, you know, undertook a lot of engagement in terms of the drop-in centres, evenings, days, and got a lot of feedback through that informal process as well. So Kendall, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, so we held 5 drop-in sessions. We got quite a good level of feedback through that. I think most of them were about a 1 hour to an hour and a half discussion. So that was full discussion between everyone and some really good ideas through that. Also just throughout work in general, a lot of informal feedback has been coming through, and in terms of organisations, I think there were about 11 different organisations provided feedback as a whole, so there would be more views in that as well. Yeah, so 186 people formally, but I'd say it's probably a bit wider.
Maybe more like 300 or 400 if you put the groups together, do you think?
Yeah, it'd be a bit wider than 186, but I think that 186 is a good turnout.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Eames.
Yes, thank you, Lee. Just a couple of points, and sort of following on from what Lee said. The industrial land zoning area. I presume we can have more chat about that as things go on, but I just wonder when we talk there about the scale and size of how much industrial we want in the town. The other thing that's concerning me was the timeline. If we're going to really try and get this to a master plan by December 22, is that set in concrete? Can that move out? I'm just nervous that by the time we have the election and then go through to further engagement, we're going to be into 2023.
Firstly, just in terms of the industrial land, we will consider, you know, what might be the quantum required, and part of the need for that industrial land is because we are looking at a town centre zone and mixed use. And we have heard, or Kendall's heard in particular, that there are those who are looking for some light industrial land. And I think it's really important, even when we have things like transit-oriented development, and we're thinking about, you know, transport and residential development and commercial, that we think about people's daily needs, like getting your car serviced and those sorts of things. So we do need to make sure that there is that light industrial land, and we'll do that through the master planning process. Just in terms of the timetable, in terms of your second question, and I did text Richard on this because as the urban designer on the team, you know, the next stage of this process, there is a lot of work for him to do in terms of actually drawing up more detailed designs following design charrette. And he felt relatively comfortable that that could be done. I wanted to emphasise that when we come to you in December, it will be with a draft master plan for your consideration. And you might want some amendments to that before it goes out for public consultation. And then the formal public consultation will not happen until late January, February. We can, if need be, you know, make that consultation a bit later on in February. What we're trying to do is to make sure, if possible, you know, we do it so that within that financial year, between July of this year and June of next year, it is completed. I mean, one of the other things is pace is important for a number of reasons. Things change all the time, and every time we're delaying things, we have to update statistics and those sorts of things, and it adds cost. So we're trying to get a really good plan for Featherston, but it won't be perfect, but it needs to be good enough that you feel confident to go out for further formal consultation early next year.
Okay, thank you. Cool. Colin.
Yeah, no, thanks very much for that, and thanks for all the work that's been done around this since 2019. I think it was kicked off.
Yep.
Thanks, Russell and Kendall, James. Really wonderful document. I guess a couple of things that I might want to make comment about. One is obviously the relocation of the railway station seemed to trigger an awful lot of response from our community. And it probably had a twofold effect. One is that it allowed our opportunity to actually realise that these things are quite significant and they do need to be involved and engaged with that process. The second thing is, of course, there were a lot in that community who felt that we were wasting their time because the reality was that nobody was going to shift the railway station in the first place. So that sparked that level of controversy. I think our community, and even now when we're talking to people in our community, they're making comments about little changes, incremental things that they're, and I think that'll come through once the drafts out there and available for, because people are just wanting to know what the final shape's going to look like. so that they can actually comment and feed that back. So really exciting times for Featherston. I think it's wonderful actually, and once in a generation opportunity to have this say and to look towards our future and what we're going to look like. Main Street, obviously, is one thing that that has triggered all the way through. But thanks for the work, guys. Wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Could I just make a comment? The master plan will also include a suggested implementation plan, and you're quite right in terms of what might be the top priorities of what to implement first and how long and over what time period, because it'll be really important that then dovetails in with your long-term plan and budgeting cycles. So we will try to come back to you with some propositions of what needs to happen first and when for your consideration.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Councillor Fox.
Thank you. Just a question really in regard to the reform of RMA and thinking about how this fits in with the Spatial Planning Act and Natural and Built Environments Act, and whether when those are enacted, what changes might actually potentially come across considerations in this report, that how will they be substantially impacted in the future? And is that something we need to factor in now or just move with what we've got right now?
Through the chair, I think that you can move with what you've got now, and there's a couple of reasons for that. I mean, in terms of the resource management reform, one of the parts of the reform is spatial planning, and probably that has had less information coming out on it than in terms of the natural and built environment. But nevertheless, having sat in on a webinar on the spatial planning framework just yesterday, the spatial planning framework will have a regional spatial strategy that will sit above the natural and built environment legislation. In other words, you have your spatial plan and then your district plan, and you've already got a spatial plan, and Featherston was identified as part of that. It's aligning very much already with the regional spatial plan of Greater Wellington Regional Council. So really this master plan is an implementation of that regional spatial strategy. So I think in a way you're ahead of the game on this. So I don't think you need to worry about that. And I know that you're doing a district plan review at the moment, and we're working very closely with Russell and Kendall and the district plan team to make sure that we're aligning the thinking around what's happening there with what's happening here, so that it's integrated and it doesn't end up all disjointed as we move forward.
Yeah, and I think just I can comment on that Kim Kelly, through the regional growth framework, has taken our spatial plan on board as part of the development of the regional spatial plan anyway. So we've got an alignment. Councillor West.
I think that one of the greatest things about going through this process is that there's been a lot to work through. However, it does give us a template moving forward for our other two towns. So hopefully those transitions will be a lot smoother. So I'm looking forward to, after tackling this, moving forward through to our other towns.
And I think in our spatial plan, we had those allocated at re-looking at after a 3-year period. Is that correct? Yeah. Councillor Plymouth.
Yeah, thank you. Russell, the government released their policy on Saturday on what is it? Highly productive lands and so on and so forth. Obviously, within the district plan, the district-wide plan, we've taken cognizance of that, knowing it was coming. We started this process a little bit earlier, obviously, with where we're expanding our towns. Have we made sure that we're in that respect?
And to answer your question specifically, we did our thinking in the spatial plan, spatial plan. We considered the importance of highly productive land in class 1, class 2 soils in terms of before we landed as part of our assessment and part of updating councillors and part of our forward planning for new growth areas for respective towns.
It's the detail that came out, because we didn't know what the detail was. Has that changed? Changed, obviously. You probably knew I was going to ask this question.
Probably not now. In terms of the detail, obviously we've only had we've had a little bit of a look at it, and the particular piece of the NPS rather that you are interested in essentially protects thinking that was undertaken prior to the NPS coming into legal effect, which is actually in October. So that would cover spatial plan, which covers 3 towns.
Excellent.
So it is essentially the work that we've done and good thinking prior as well supports them. But certainly the work, we are enabled to continue that work.
Because that was the risk of Minister Parker was going to include classification 3 land, which is severely limited.
Yeah, it is included.
So we've ring fenced our ability to grow as per community consultation. Yeah, good question. Yeah.
I just,
So just to add to that, I mean, the key focus for the NPS is actually diffuse file development.
I know, but
That's the main wall that
but when you look at the map, it's got to
address.
I just want to mention, Alistair, I rang James on Monday morning. Asked that very question. Clarification, but yeah.
Yeah, cool. Any other questions?
For you, Worship, Russell, it was mentioned, or Kendall mentioned that going forward that looking at the other 2 towns, that was a 3-year and a 5 years away. I'm a little bit disappointed in that time frame, in that it was Martinborough that actually started this whole process off of the lack of land and lack of local light industrial area and no room for moving for housing and things like that. And to think that that's, yeah, I understand why we moved to doing Featherston first and things like that, but I still don't think, I think that is too long a time frame before you start on the other 2 towns. So I'd like that to be noted and some consideration be given to that, please.
A new council can. I think we've got to weigh up council capability, but also the feedback we sought during that spatial plan, and also the government's request that we concentrate development around transport nodes, of which Featherston was the only town transport node in close proximity. So, but I think a new council can revisit the timeline if we feel that we want to allocate more capacity to bring this forward.
we could have suggested the railway station got to be moved to Martinborough and would have been on top of it.
You'll be wanting a hearing.
Yeah, ain't gonna happen, Jeppy.
Through the chair, yeah, I'd like to acknowledge Councillor Clemenceau's point. It's a very valid point and holding us to account as to getting results for the towns and reminding us of earlier commitments. So yeah, take that note, but we will do what we can. The other comment is in terms of Councillor Fox's comment in terms of spatial plans, in particular regional spatial planning with I've still got to liaise alongside Gree with in terms of activating Featherston as a CDO, complex development opportunity area. So there's that link that I have to plug into as implementation components for the Wellington Regional Growth Framework, which occurs. So there's that connection point as well. So things won't be lost because it's all part of consideration and look at implementation components for good growth in the right area. So just give you that assurance.
Fantastic.
And the only other comment I'd make in a general sense is that we as a small council are doing good work, and that's good combined work through councillors, officers, consultants, and we've been ahead of the game in a way as upholding the importance of spatial planning, and that's the message coming out, the theme coming out through the reform. So we're doing what we need to do.
Yeah, and I can actually acknowledge the previous council was starting the ball rolling on the spatial plan as well.
Yeah.
We picked up and ran with.
Thank you.
Before we move to a resolution and discussion on the 2 proposals, can you inform me of Waka Kotahi and in their involvement in the CDO concept, their involvement regarding access onto State Highway 2 for Featherston? I understand there has been some pushback regarding state highways and access and growth. Are they
several months ago, they have tightened up in terms of any new access points onto State Highway 2. So that's the current viewpoint in terms of under the remit for managing traffic safety and minimising risk. So that's their current view, and officers in the team have viewed that through signals on future decision making and awareness. So we know of that. Did you perhaps need the question answered in a wider sense?
Just saying, are you engaging with them to ensure that we get a good outcome as opposed to a roadblock? Yeah.
Representatives of them were involved in the initial design meeting. They're coming to the second design charrette beginning of September, as are reps of Greater Wellington Regional Council and Wellington Water. So we've got to have all factors in play and ideas captured, which we will.
So if through you, Mr. Chair, so if I'm hearing right, you've just said that no streets off the main street. Is that what they're referring to?
Waka Kotahi have given a clear expression of they will not support new access points onto State Highway 2 as indicated by the Mayor. And that's the message that we've received within the team.
Yeah, so they're a submitter, but doesn't have to be accepted. But we just want to make sure that conversation.
That's what I was going to ask is where does the Waka Kotahi's they can do whatever they like outside of the town boundary, obviously within state highway corridors. Where's their what's their power inside a town boundary?
So it's called limited access roads, so ALARs. And so Waka Kotahi essentially for the whole state highway, regardless if it's out of town or in town, it's a limited access, and permission to actually put a driveway or access onto the state highway requires their permission to do that under that.
So they can veto anything.
But they can new ones. Read.
Through the Mayor, I think it's really important, as Russell said, Waka Kotahi are involved in this process. But what's important now is there is a one national framework for transport. And so that is a framework which Waka Kotahi and the Transport Authority abide by. And that is a framework that balances place and movement. So as you have a highway, and the idea is that it's trying to distribute traffic, then the movement function becomes more predominant. But the one national framework is also saying that where there's a place function, you might have to balance the place function with the arterial function. And the framework allows for that to happen. So what we will need to do is to be working very closely with Waka Kotahi is how to implement that. And all your roads should be classified now under the new one national framework. So we need to pull that one national framework into the next design charrette and make sure that we do the fine-grained analysis so that we can get some place function as well as, the movement function.
And hence the importance of the value of a CDO. We're actually on the table talking to them.
Obviously, it's not just the Featherston master plan, but there's some practical one, of course, because it's other.
But we'll get precedent as results as this first cab. So I'm going to go now to recommendation 1, unless you want more discussion. And just have recommendation 1. We have either approve vision 1 or approve vision 1 and vision 2. And your thoughts on that, councillors?
I'd be interested in the feathers.
Sorry.
I'm looking at this, and the B came through from the consultation, I believe, through the Featherston community. I think it would probably pay to perhaps look at B because they see themselves in 2 ways, and then if that's put in with the draft master plan, I think we'll get some feedback on which one they prefer.
Precise.
Yeah.
Councillor Hay.
Oh, and I agree with Pep. I was just interested in what Featherston.
That's what it says on
Resaid it can change and evolve.
It's still a draft.
It's still
Yes, I don't think we need to be too caught up in this. I mean, if that's what the community want.
I'm going to then punt up that do we have a mover to receive the Featherston master master plan concept option, master plan development and detailed design report and approve Vision 1 Featherston as read. So option B approves Vision 1 Featherston and Vision 2 Featherston Resilient, Creative and Caring as read. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Eames, seconded,
All hang together.
Councillor Maynard. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, motion is carried. Do we have a mover to approve concept option 1, intensification around the existing town centre and existing train station to proceed to the master detailed design stage? Moved Councillor Olds, seconded Councillor Hay. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, motion is carried. Don't be rude, Colin. And also, do we have a mover to endorse the 2 detailed design plans as priorities for the master plan being 3.1 and 3.2? Thank you very much, Councillor Fox.
I just say and 3.3, which has been added about putting to.
I was going to read that out because it's an addendum.
Oh, right, okay.
Seconded Councillor Maynard. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against, the motion is carried. And then also 3.3, do we have a mover to refer to this report to the Pearson Community Board for information?
3.3, yeah.
Seconded Councillor Eames. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against, the motion is carried. Thank you, guys. And thank you very much. Very, very good report.
Excellent.
Thank you, Ray. It's been a great week.
Thanks, Ray. Thank you.
There's not for a cup of tea at some stage.
Alex.
You would like a 5-minute break? Sorry, just. Okay, I'll now adjourn for a short break to refresh your cups of coffee and other things. And we'll reconvene at 11:30.
My dentist, right?
Good slope back.
Hello.
Right.
Hi, guys, reconvene. So as you may have noticed in the run sheet, we are now moving to agenda item D3, and then we'll come back to C4. So I'm going old school back to paper. So we have a mover to receive the Wairarapa Combined District Plan Review continuation of joint committee report. Councillor West, seconded Councillor Maynard. All those in favour say aye. Those against, carried. So we have a couple of officers here. Councillors, do we have any questions of the officers? So I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I think that there's
That's a great report.
a continuation issue that wasn't accounted for in the original terms of reference.
Perhaps if I would note that it's been pointed out to me, there's some carryovers in terms of references to the particular councils in the report. It's like councillors to note, there's some errors there. If I give some background to it, essentially the same report was went to each of the three councils in the joint committee to resolve. And certainly I've looked to try and adapt it as best I can for our council today. I think there's a few references to Masterton that originated from, but have not been correctly stated in the report. So we acknowledge that from the start.
Yes. Right. So questions of officers.
I just missed that last sentence. As somebody's coming through the door, can you just?
Essentially, there's some references to Masterton as the writer that should refer to.
Okay, right. No, thanks, James. Yeah.
Take that as noted.
Yep.
Substitute accordingly. Any other questions? And it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
So therefore, do we have a mover to resolve not to discharge the Wairarapa Combined District Plan Joint Committee at the coming into office of members of the local authority elected or appointed at or following the triennial election of October 22? Moved Councillor Fox, seconded Councillor Colenso. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Just going.
I got to abstain.
That for the first time in 12 years, I will abstain from voting on this.
Declare a conflict of interest. So all those against,
Yeah, I
all those
think you're both.
abstaining, we have Councillor Gibson, Councillor Plimmer. The motion is carried. So now we can go back to C4, the destination Wairarapa memorandum of understanding.
Thank you. So I'll speak to this.
Not generous yet. Do we have a mover to receive the report? Thank you, Councillor A, seconded Councillor Eames. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, the motion is now carried. Now, Mr. Wilkie, I'd like to speak to the report.
First of all, I'd like to just comment on how well served I think this council has been by Destination Wairarapa. Their role has been to promote tourist attraction and visitor attraction to the South Wairarapa district or the Wairarapa. We've certainly benefited from that, and I think the results are very obvious in terms of the returns that have been made, particularly in very trying times across New Zealand. We are fortunate that we rely on a lot of domestic tourism as opposed to international tourism. They've certainly promoted the Wairarapa and South Wairarapa in particular as a destination, an attractive destination, and we're seeing that through literally people's feet are telling us that information. So I just really like to acknowledge that I think outstanding work. I'm sure you'll share with me recognising that. So it's a great pleasure that I present this report to council asking you to approve the memorandum MOU for 22-25, and just note key changes has been the inclusion of destination plan. It was funded by Tourism New Zealand. I think they've done an outstanding job. Council has been briefed on that management plan and is regularly updated by Destination Wairarapa on stats, its information, and there's been a lot of questions from members and support for it. So that in terms of funding, it's exactly the same as we have provided in the past. There is no new funding And it's continuation of the old. Largely, the MOU is the same as the previous MOU, so there's not many changes here. So I really have pleasure in commending this report to you. And for completeness, we've included the destination management plan, which council has seen and made comments on previously. So with that, I'll ask if there's any questions or comments or observations.
I have one. I'm sure you added that just to make the agenda even bulkier. Given that recently Carlton District Council changed the term for their resolution on the MOU, is this still a 3 council plus DW MOU, or do we need to separate it as a MOU between Destination Wairarapa and the South Wairarapa District Council?
I think we can continue. We can continue as a 3. You can note the resolution notes. It requires all parties to formally approve it. So if we stood aside from that, I think it would create difficulty in what we need to do. So I suggest we continue as the paper recommends.
Harry, just a quick question. So these changes, which look, I think are great, have you discussed the proposed amendments with the other 2 councils prior to bringing this?
Yes, at all councils are receiving essentially the same paper.
And they're all happy with the amendment? I think it makes a lot of sense to have those amendments.
I think it's crucial to give an organisation who does work on our behalf surety of funding over a longer period, because they have contracts and staff. So hence why I think 3-year period is quite normal. We're not increasing their funding within this MOU. It's the status quo.
So just to clarify that, so on page 162, the funding there is carried over from 2019, correct?
Right. Yes.
And the commitment to that funding for another 3 years from now.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And it is budgeted now long term.
Okay, that's all right. Thank you. Harry, what
I don't know. Sorry, Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Could we have a look at page 154? Just a couple of changes, if you don't mind. Under section 5, under the legislative, can we please change that to as stated and put SWDC instead of MDC, and also going forward section 6, which is on the last line, involved is
SWDC.
Absolutely.
We'll take a note of that. And any other, is it the only 2? I'm sure you pieced it for us, Pam.
I had let amended before I did that.
That's the only 2.
Yeah, what happens if Carterton doesn't sign up for the 3 years? What's the actual effect?
That would be an amendment of their MOU, which wouldn't affect our signing.
But it does, because this says that it's not operational till we all agree.
It's a note.
Yeah, it's a note.
I know, but I note that it won't be effective. So what is the effect of Carterton?
So if we sign it, effectively, they'll be signing up to a 2-year term, and we'll be signing up to a 3-year term. As will MDC.
That was the point of my first question of clarification.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but that the clarification is that they're going to do that. So what does that actually mean? Because this is, I would assume that an MOU, it's a binding document that says we are all doing this. If they say, oh no, we want to amend it, do we then have to come back and go back through this again?
So that they can make an amendment to their part of the term of the MOU. It'll still commit us to 3 years of funding, as it will from us.
Yeah. So it stands as a document.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
That's the advice we've got.
Okay.
We have to come back to the new council. That's
Mayor Alex, just we're the last council across our district, basically, to have our final council meeting for the year. So Marston and Carterton would have already signed off on this. And so the information you got from Carterton is that they were questioning the full amount.
They have passed it with To align, their reasoning was to align with your long-term plan, and it's in 19 months, and then it will be reconsidered within their LT.
So we're the last council to endorse the MOU, is that correct? So it'll become active, obviously, if we agree to it. Yeah, and it's fine, yeah. Thank you.
Councillor West.
Just a quick question. I'm assuming that the 131,950 plus due coming out of our operating expenses, or is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And as mentioned, it's in our LTP. Already budgeted. Yeah.
Yep.
Councillor Cleanzo.
Your worship, I was going to ask if, for example, Carterton does not renew that at the end of their 19 months, will that have a financial impact on us having to increase our
It would
contribution?
have a financial effect on Destination Wairarapa in being unable to continue at the level of service. And that would be a bit of a serious conversation having to be had between the three councils on their support of the service.
Yeah, because I was thinking if DW can't do the things that they'd said they were going to do because of that, then there is a risk that we might have to increase our funding to cover some of that.
I think I've mentioned it's frustrating. However, this is the first time I've seen this happen. We will, but at the moment, that's for the a new council and to decide our Destination Wairarapa should that come to pass. Yeah,
because they do such good work. You wouldn't like their program to fall over.
I mean,
Fabulous.
that level of, perhaps they're looking at increasing after 90 months the level of funding in line with our combined council funding agreement.
Yeah.
So it may be of benefit to this.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, Councillor Hay.
I was just wondering if there's an opportunity to pass on to DW our thanks for all the hard work from this council, because my own involvement with them, I've found they've punched way above their weight. They get great media attention, and
I think we have passed that on to them a few times. Anna Nielsen. So
I agree with Lee. I think it's important because this is the end of a triennium.
Yep.
And, you know, we've all worked with them for 3 years and we've all had.
Well, would you like me to do a note that
Please.
thanks to the triennium for their work? Oh, great. Do that as a note.
Perhaps we also want to make it public that the results from Destination Wairarapa were reported in the media not long ago about the GDP spend in Wairarapa, and
absolutely
right through the last 3 years we have I think we've been one of the highest in the country.
I think
right through this period. So
post-COVID, we were and partially because of the reaction of DW to the predicted tourism end following lockdown, but also quite a lot towards our rural community. We actually the only district in New Zealand to have a positive GDP growth. Only district in New Zealand, 67. So just to note their importance to us.
So people are questioning the value of the spend that
I was talking about our district as opposed to Right. Any other questions on this? Good. So do we have a mover to approve the proposed Destination Wairarapa Memorandum of Understanding 22 to 2025 between Destination Wairarapa, Marsden, Carterton and South Wairarapa District Councils contained in Appendix 1. Thank you, Councillor Hayes, seconded Councillor Maynard. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, motion is carried. And also, do we have a mover to, and we also a mover to note that the MOU will not be operational until all parties formally approve it. Councillor Fox, seconded Councillor Plimmer. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, motion is carried. Excellent. And on to C5. We're now considering item C5, approval of the Wairarapa Economic Strategy 2025 report. Welcome. Do we have a mover to receive this report? Councillor Jepson, seconded Councillor West. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, the motion is carried. So, welcome. I'm sure we've all met Jacinta from WEDS before. And Mr. Wilson, would you like to talk to this with Jacinta?
Yeah, thank you. So welcome, Jacinta. Again, I'd like to pass on my congratulations to the team, the new team, Natasha and Jacinta. They have run a very robust consultation with councils, the WEDS group, industry, members of the community to form this refreshed economic strategy. I think, economic growth and economic futures is always a very difficult thing to do, but we're built on what we know and what the Wairarapa does successfully. Again, this is the end of quite a long journey, a very long journey of that period of consultation. Council has been briefed on the elements of the strategy itself and provided feedback. So this now formalises the end of that journey where we agree the strategy, the MOU, and complete the detail of allowing the plan to go ahead. I note that again, this is like all the previous, this is a MOU that is across all three councils. Again, in terms of budget, it is it's the amount we have budgeted in our LTP, so there's no new financial commitment to this. But I also just want to draw out one element is that this is part of this is a subset of a superset. So there's the part of the work is being trying to differentiate those things Wairarapa from the wider regional economic strategy. So it's very clear that this work actually carves out our place as a Wairarapa in terms of how it's considered in the context of the wider economic growth framework. If we didn't do that, it would be very Wellington-centric, the combined economic strategy. So again, this is something that has to be seen in tandem with the bigger picture. But I think the team has done an sterling job, and this is hopefully, if council has the will, we're looking for your approval to sign off these resolutions. Jacinda, is there anything you'd like to add? Or and if there are questions people have specifically of Jacinda, please feel free to ask.
Morning, everyone. Don't worry, I'm not here to ambush you with another 2 hours of me talking. I would like to reassure you that there was no significant change to the package that were given or the presentation joint council workshop. I noted that across the councils there's been a bit of discussion and question around the terms and the renewal periods of the MOU. One of the things the re-establishment of WEDS does is bring in a new party properly for the first time to synergise really with Business Wairarapa, International Wairarapa and WEDS. Now we know that we've passed resolutions in the past keeping those entities separate, but one of the best opportunities we have is for us to take proactive leadership role in ensuring that we come to future councils as a united front during the long-term process and provide those well-researched solutions.
Right.
And start to make this a region-wide approach rather than necessarily a fractured approach. I'm happy to answer any questions if you've got any other people.
And before we open up the question, a couple of things. I'd like to acknowledge Dame Margaret Baisley for her work in getting to where we are today, and also the extra vigour that Adrian Young-Cooper has brought as a chair of Wairarapa Economic Development Strategy. And also, I'd like to acknowledge the involvement and agreement of Wellington NZ and the rating take for economic development now being specified and spent quantifiably within the Wairarapa region. So those are two good parts that have got to where we're at. Councillors, do you have any questions of Jacinda? I mean, there's quite a bit of information there, and it's all, I'm sure you've all read through it. And it's been a 3-year, 5-year where we are today.
Hi, just a quick one on page 22, next steps. Obviously, Patton and Marston have gone ahead. Yes. Yeah. The final bit, I'm just a bit confused. Cost estimate for the actions in December 22. The full meeting will be requested. Is that we are requesting those costs, or you're going to request and do a budget for that December? Is that how we understand it?
So that was a little curveball slipped in there by NDC at the request of their councillors. So what they would like is for myself and representative of the Regional Economic Development Plan to come back to the WEDS Forum in December and talk about the initiatives across both plans and start providing some overarching costs associated with that or an initial scoping.
So will they come back to us? Oh, we won't have another meeting.
It'll come to the next council.
Yeah, so that will be done by yourselves.
Correct.
come back to the first meeting in 23.
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
So what we've got is an overarching direction.
Yeah.
And what I think Martin is trying to do is to quantify that we do what we can do, what WEDS can do well, as opposed to possibly previous iterations which tried to do too much, not well. And now when we get down to the nitty gritty, then the funding allocation then gets discussed on each one of them.
Okay, so we can go back and discuss that, obviously, just the new council, our council.
Yes.
When it comes. I'm just feeling we're being pushed into a.
Not at all. It's a good discussion to have to look at the costings. Of
Yeah, I agree.
individual,
Yeah.
arm of operation.
It's likely a chance to do it.
Yeah.
Good.
So I'm okay with that, I think. Anyone else? Any other questions?
Thanks. Yeah, just nice to see that it's noted as a refresh of the existing document to a large extent, although there are some fundamental differences between the two. So, yeah, great work. Thanks very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, very good work. Yeah.
Thanks, team. Really appreciate it.
Is that it, guys? Is that all the discussion? Hey, good stuff.
We've had a lot of discussion.
A lot of discussion about it. Yeah.
Right, so therefore, do we have a mover for items 2 through 11 as read?
I'm happy to do that.
Councillor Old, seconded Councillor Fox. All those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
All those against. The motion is carried. Thank you, Jacinda.
No.
It was a long.
Yeah. But with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great work.
Now on to C6, the dog control policy and practices 2021 to 22 report. Do we have a mover to receive the report? Councillor Paletto, seconded Councillor Hay. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against. The motion is carried. Mr. Mead, you are in the hot seat.
Thank you.
Councillors, I'm assuming you've all read it.
Yep.
Do you have any questions of Mr. Mead or for clarification? Councillor Hay.
Oh, hi there, Rick. Just a quick question under number 5, comments or complaints. You said 1920 impact of COVID-19. I just wondered whether that should be in there because it was sort of halfway between when we went into COVID. So I know that we'd had bigger numbers when we were in lockdown, so post-March. Yeah, just wonder whether that should be across all 3 of those numbers.
I think the impact is just to show when lockdown was in, what it impacted and what we were doing in terms of answering calls.
Yeah,
So when we were on level 4, we paired services into just emergencies only. So it did have an impact in terms of the numbers.
Okay.
That's why I sort of expressed it that way.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Just a comment, we, in our audit has required us to make an impact of COVID in our annual reports traditionally. So this is actually really useful. So we can pull this out to actually say some of the specific impacts are. So it's very useful to know.
Yep, Councillor Olds.
You've got, I think in your report, state you've got 2 staff, 2 animal control or bylaw officers, actually. Yeah. So I just wondered what percentage of time would be taken up with animal control as against any other bylaws, or are we using our bylaw officers for that effect as well? Is it just for animal control?
Yeah, so the way our FDEs are is that I've now classed them as a regulatory officer, which has different functions. So animal control, bylaws, fly tipping, coastal ranging as well. So we had 3 previously and now we're down to 2, but they cover all those there. Animal control is the largest unit part of it, absolutely.
Yep, excellent, thanks. Okay.
Other questions? Yeah, Councillor Plymouth.
Yeah, Rick, I'm just interested in a bit more information on the 3 parts of the attacks on persons, stock and pets. What has been the results of those? Their complaints, obviously, that doesn't mean they've been upheld. Have they, obviously you investigate them, what's been the result of that? Because particularly the attack on other pets and the attack on people, it seems to be reasonably consistent in the last couple of years that we're getting 7 attacks on people is quite a lot for a district our size, I would have thought.
Yeah, it's one of those phenomenons that it really comes down to owners not putting dogs on leads, and that's where the interaction comes out. So that's been going forward one of our big drivers is to actually get this philosophy of letting your dog walk like Caesar Millan, and actually putting them on leads, because we're finding that while people are saying they're under control, it gives the distance and the attacks are coming through. Now the action or the consequence of what those investigations range from the whole gambit right through to menacing. So we have menaced dogs, and we're probably more conscious of that in terms of where we're looking at those, through to warning letters, infringement notices. But one part that we've put a lot of work into since the last 3 years has been to actually educate and talk with the owners. So we're not really just sending them something, we're actually engaging to actually find out what was actually happening with the dog and what they're doing. So it's inspections of properties, talking to the owners, understanding where they are, and looking at solutions. So it may be as simple as providing a spring on a gate to stop the dog from getting out of a tradie or someone being in there, the postie or something. And the other big focus in terms of those attacks, if where they are, is to ensure, and this is something that owners should be aware of, is there an available door where the dog doesn't have access to? So the postie, the Jehovah's Witness or the Guild guys can actually walk up to someone's property without having to interact with that dog. So we've been focusing on that as well, and signage. And so that's that. Does it answer your question?
Yeah, the attacks on people, have we had serious attacks, or have these been minor sort of nip somebody walked past as opposed to some of
Yeah, I think from the victim's point of view, they're always serious.
and I can tell you, having my dog, they do hurt.
I understand. The question is, we have had what we would call, at least from memory in the last year, 2 serious attacks where there was extensive hospitalisation of them. And one I think was out in Narrowee.
Yep.
And then they vary from an attack's an attack, and they do bruise and puncture the skin. So that's where that goes. But they do vary. But I can confirm that we have had a couple of very serious attacks that I know of.
And the results to those dogs put down, or?
So the one that we do know of was that the owner did surrender the dog to put down in that case. And the other one, I think from memory, was a menacing classification of the dog, which menacing classification means that public must be a muzzle. And there are certain other criteria that's there as well to mitigate an attack on somebody else.
Yep. Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, no, thanks, Rick. Recent comments in the Warwick Times Age around a negotiated fee for impounding dogs, for instance, in our new one. Have we resolved that issue, or is it still an ongoing discussions with Garden District Council about what they're prepared to pay for an impounded dog using the pound?
I'm not sure whether that's relevant for the matter. What the council probably maybe better served at a different form of assets and services. And
I'm not worried about the fee itself. It's just whether or not that matter's been resolved.
The purpose of the report in front of us.
Okay, so that's fine.
Yeah, I think
happy to
bring that on.
Happy to, yeah. Like to know these things. This is our last council meeting. I won't get an opportunity, perhaps later.
Yeah, you know better. Councillor Gibbs.
Just getting back to Alice's point, but and Rick, you touched on people being severely injured. There was a bit of flack regarding one incident why the council didn't prosecute this person. Mere fact was it cost about 10 grand to get him prosecuted, and the only outcome you're going to get is he's going to put the dog down. Well, the dog was put down, so you know it was pretty hard to explain to people you know, how can you justify spending 10 grand to get an outcome that's already happened, you know? So you don't see a lot of that in the papers or.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
I think just to add to that is that the financial implication is only one consideration that you look at. And like the sort of general Attorney General's guidelines in regards to prosecutions provides a good guideline of what the public interest is, and that is something that officers refer to, and as part of their criteria when considering what actions are.
There's also that issue of double jeopardy, you know, the trauma of actually making a decision to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Why would we then go and punish it again?
Yeah. One oddity, I noticed that lost dogs, found dogs generally is equated or is very similar, but except for 21, 22, which is a lot more lost dogs than found.
So we've looked at that and how we classify that. And so if a dog's notified to us that it's lost, we note it down. But if it's found by other than us, we don't record that.
People coming up.
It's a read.
Councillor Colenso.
Rick, can I just ask, I see that we've got, if you add the number of rural dogs and urban dogs, that's higher than what you have registered. Is that something that you were still following up from the previous year, or I just happen to know?
Which figures that?
So on that number 6.
To recheck those on those. Yeah.
Just, yeah.
Rural dogs against urban.
So you've got urban, and if you add the two of them together, you don't, they're higher than the actual dogs that are
Scroll down, there's failure,
Yes.
had the failure to register in there.
Yeah, so.
86, that may be the difference. Yeah.
So,
the registered dogs is a known number to us. That's not necessarily all the dogs that are in our area, and we know that for a fact there are dogs that we continue to find not registered. And as
someone moves from Wellington and has their dog registered in Wellington, does it wait? Do they remain registered until the end of the year period comes out? Is that correct? Or
no, I think we transfer it into our district. So it goes on our registration. So I'm not sure whether we would. Yeah.
Whether you take
Councillor West.
So with regards to that, if I understand it right, if a person is coming here for a holiday, they bring their dog, it's not going to show up.
No.
Right, any other questions or banter? Okay, do we have a mover to recommend that pursuant to section 10A of the Dog Control Act of 96, the attached report on dog control policy and practices 22 be adopted, and recommend officers be authorised to publicly notify the report?
I'd be happy.
Councillor Colenso, seconded Councillor Olds. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, the motion is carried.
Just before I exit the seat, if I could just take this opportunity to thank the councillors and the mayor for the support and the robust questioning. My team. Let me appreciate it. Look,
One of my favourite subjects.
It is generally probably I think the hardest area is regulatory, and the fact that everyone has an opinion around dogs, and especially in the current climate. But the humour, the questions have been well thought out. So from my point of view, I appreciate the service that you provided, and thank you for that on behalf of myself and my team.
Thank you very much.
Rick, dogs are like kids. Some people love them, other people hate them.
Great work you do that.
Must be lunchtime, isn't it?
Oh, come on. I got it. 56 minutes.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Okay, we're now moving on to agenda item C7, revoking policies. Report. Do we have a mover to receive the report? Thank you, Councillor Fox. Seconded, Councillor Maynard. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, the motion is carried. Amanda and Steph, welcome. Would you like to speak to the report?
Sure, I can give a quick overview. So this paper has resulted from some work we've been doing to draft up a policy framework and a high-level review schedule going forward of all of our policies. And through that process, we've identified a handful of policies that are either historic or have been superseded, or we consider would be appropriate in a different format for ease of use by the public. And so we've provided some suggested alternatives in the paper for consideration where they exist, which is more consistent with the approach of other councils as well. The paper has been through all of the community boards, so I went to their meetings in each of their last rounds. They were supportive of the recommendation. No concerns were raised for us to report back or address. So yeah, I'm just happy to take any questions, or Amanda, if you had anything to add to that.
Good, and thank you. It's a very clear discussion, and too. The way you've spelled it out and mentioned which other the reasons are suggested further up. So
No, I was just wanting to clarify that as well, that the fact that that's because a lot of the time they double up, don't they? So there's no point in having to go through this, multiple times when we can just do it once.
And it's nice to know that there's an oversight going on. We are looking at these policies and saying we don't need this anymore.
Get rid of the dead wood.
Yeah, Councillor West.
Yeah, I'm just got a quick query with regards to the raffles one. The street days and appeals and raffles. I mean, raffles is actually covered under DIA with their requirements, so it completely makes it redundant. But with regards to street days, I mean, they do happen, but in a different capacity, like you have a look at the Spartanburg. It's great to see that that there's been a lot of consideration into either moving them into the areas where they're best suited and getting rid of policies.
Any questions?
I just have an observation, and I see that a lot of these obviously policies relate to the previous triennium. This one, and I always wondered why I was so busy, and I was looking through this. So I guess that observation. Thanks.
It's also clearer for the public.
Yeah. Cool. All right, guys.
Is there a community engagement that we need to do?
No, it's all pretty gone forward. I've done really good. Yeah, it's all gone through the community board.
Yeah, this is, I think going through the community board certainly has made sure that we have a community lens on this from other elected officials, but yeah, it's a function of council.
Just in response to that question, I think the other thing that we've set up as part of our policy review process is we've set up a section on the website, and we've got a list of all the policies coming up for review, and people can register their interest if they want to give feedback on particular policies.
Great idea, yeah.
That's quite new, isn't it?
It's brand new.
Right. First, do we have a mover for item 2? I'm not going to read all that out.
Yes.
Yeah, seconded, Councillor West. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against. Motion is carried. Guys, we'll be at lunch early, Colin.
Right, that'll be a change.
Going to C8, delegation to the Chief Executive during the 2022 interim election period report.
Did we discuss this at our last meeting and?
We had a discussion around emergency management.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Gotcha. In case of civil defence emergency need to be declared during a period, we have an item in this. We have a recommendation that procedure of should a civil defence emergency need to be declared.
I mean, it's pretty standard.
This happens every training.
This is guidance.
End of every training.
Yeah. So anyway, just before we start, do we have a mover to receive the delegation to the Chief Executive during the 2022 interim election period report? Councillor M, seconded Councillor Flimmer. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against, the motion is carried. Steph, do you want to talk to this, or are we happy that we've already certainly discussed the CDM side of things?
I guess all I would say is that the arrangements is likely to be for a short period. We have tentatively booked the first inaugural meeting for the 26th of October. And the recommendation to delegate to the chief executive, there are conditions around that in terms of the chief executive consulting with the mayor only for decisions that reasonably cannot wait, and that all decisions will be reported to the first incoming meeting, which is consistent with the guidance from LGNZ and the approach that has been taken in previous trainings as well. So nothing really new in this.
Yeah, I could also mention that we had our civil defence emergency meeting yesterday in Wellington, and certainly this was raised in the preference for everyone as an emergency swearing in of the mayor to enable to have it declare an emergency. Otherwise, you'll have to go to the minister to declare it. Yeah.
Sorry.
So just to add a little bit more to that as well, it actually takes quite a lot to get to the point of activation of emergency anyway. We can still tap into Warraka regional wide resources without level activation. So just to give some assurance.
There's always a chance, and that can happen very quickly, though, as well.
Yes.
Murphy's Law is says the one time you got.
Yeah. All right, so we'll open up to this.
Yeah, it's not so much in here, but can you just clarify I guess this is a good time because it is talking about the interim election period. The one thing that I have been asked by the public is, will the council offices be open through till midday on the Saturday to be able to get their papers in at council, just because others are using the libraries, but we have the council offices. And is the council office now open until 5 p.m. at night, or is it still being closed at 4?
That's close.
What are the times?
Okay.
Because
it's actually
I'm Paul.
it's just to confirm what times people can come in and drop off their voting, and the times. But not just the Saturday. Like the days once it shuts down from being able to send it. So on those days where they're having to use the other public spaces in Featherston, Greytown, and Martinborough, what are those hours? Is there a way that we might be able to just put those online so people know exactly? Yeah, that'd be amazing. That'd be amazing.
And also just reiterate the locations, and the council will be open.
Right.
Yeah, I just think it's really important.
Cool. Yeah, Councillor Fox.
Thank you. The report has a real focus on emergency management. I think that's well covered, but what is absent when I look at the conversation around any urgent decisions, I'm thinking about some examples that actually would require an urgent decision. For example, a major failure of a water supply, or a major issue in a wastewater system, or massive sewer overflow, anything like that. Those could possibly cost above where the CEO's current delegations are. So just interested to have a bit of a conversation around the table about what that would look like.
Could you comment, Mr. Wilson, regarding emergency power delegations, and because there are situations where you have powers under emergency?
So this, remember, this is giving me the delegated responsibility the council would make in a situation. So it's not the delegation to me as a chief executive, it's delegation of the full council. So that means I can make these decisions. The only specific exclusions are those that are set out in the Local Government Act, and that's cited on page 307 at the top. So for instance, I can't make a decision to purchase assets or to borrow money, or so that. But in terms of that, you are giving, this is giving me the decision, the delegation for full council. So it's not a delegation that would normally be the chief executive.
I think you can also be confident that any decision made under those powers would be scrutinised once the new council came in.
Absolutely.
To the nth degree.
I guess what I'm just trying to get a really clear understanding of is thinking about some of the things that we've viewed over the last 3 years, where we may have vulnerabilities, particularly in regard to assets, which are specifically precluded in here, that we might require to make emergency repairs, and just wanting to have a really clear understanding that should that happen, what course of action is likely to be taken? How will that be managed and how will it be reviewed?
So the limitation is the power to borrow money or purchase or dispose of assets other than in accordance with a long-term plan. So if there was a repair or maintenance to a significant asset of councils, that's within my delegation.
It is, okay.
Well, in this, if you delegate
If
this,
asset-
but remember, it's the decision making the council would.
That's what I wanted to understand. That's okay.
I think this hasn't changed significantly over the last few decades with regards to what every council does.
No, but it's our first time to talk.
Yeah, we don't get to talk about it till the end of the training. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just, you're giving me, this is giving the chief executive the full delegation the council decision making would make with certain limitations. Okay, and so should those situations arise, I would be obliged through public health and ballistics to make the decision to the public.
Correct.
I would also suggest though, on top of that, Harry, that last council meeting, we approved the budget for Wellington Water for their long-term plan purchases anyway, and the $3 million or something we approved last one, which would cover a lot of the things probably you were talking about as well.
That was just by way of example.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's a good question. Councillor Hayes.
Just following on from you, Rebecca, you would discuss any major spends with the mayor-elect anyway. You're obliged to do that. But it's just a matter of 8 days or so, and then it has to go to full council. So
yeah,
we're not doing it in isolation.
Oh no, and you know, the report to council would be governed by the reasonable person test.
Yeah.
Under the delegation, what would a reasonable person make in the situation? So it's not I just did. This is the reasoning. This is the issue. This is the reasoning that was applied, and this is the decision had to be made.
Who defines what a reasonable person is?
The court. It's called a reasonable person.
The man on the platform.
Yes, that's right.
Can I just follow on with one more question related to that? So if you had to make a major decision on a major spend for repairs, for example, would you do that in consultation with the ELT and more particularly with GM of Finance?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, make sure.
I mean, that's the whole purpose of having a team. Yeah, but ultimately someone has to make a decision.
Yeah, I get it, respect that.
Nice. Any other questions? Right, so therefore, do we have a mover to resolve items 2 through 5 inclusive as read? Councillor Gibson, seconded Councillor Plimmer. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Any abstentions? No, the motion is carried.
We're handing you the baby.
Whether you want it or not.
And the bath water.
Yeah.
Very much.
We're running through time. The councillors want a break or should we carry on through to lunch?
Let's carry on. What can I say? Let's carry on.
Let's carry on.
We've only got
Got left to do.
got a couple
to D1,
Oh, we still got quite a bit to go. Sure, I think it'd be wise to take a break.
Maori Partnership and Representation Report. So do we have a mover to receive the report? Councillor West, seconded Councillor Maynard. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, the motion is carried. Let's see here. Are there any questions? Amanda, would you like to speak to this and just give us a bit of background, or do we want to go straight on to questions?
Just a bit of context, this report was pulled together by my team, looking at the options for Māori representation at council. So first step is part of the representation review. And this paper went to the Māori Standing Committee at their last meeting. They want to have some time to read and contemplate it. They've got some workshops coming up in the next couple of weeks, and this will be a discussion point for them before they give the incoming council any feedback on what their thoughts might be. So basically it just says there are a number of options for representation, and the council can choose different options in that kind of menu. And they have different outcomes potentially, different influence points. So it just looks at the legal options that we've got and the beginning of some consideration.
Oh, I mean, it's really good to have this. I think it's going to be incredibly important for the new council coming in to read this very carefully and look at what our options are. Councillor Maynard.
Just some clarification. I noticed that it talks about looking at hiring someone. Any update there?
So yes, we have appointed to our Po Māori principal advisor role. That person hoping to start in the next couple of weeks. They've signed their contract. So I'll do an announcement very soon, a formal announcement very soon.
I think we allocated money for this in our LT.
It's been a
I know there's simply real problems finding good talent. Yeah, we'll point to that. So.
The roles are so highly sought after that it's very difficult to actually keep them right through until they sign on that dotted line. So, because, yeah.
Had experiences.
I'm just talking about the appointment that's been made in great jobs, but how will this voice be carried into council? Around the table.
They're going to be, it's a council officer role.
Council officer role, but what about councillors?
That's the point.
We have someone to help with and get our Māori way and council. Yeah, for training.
So does that mean we also need to then discuss about having a Maori ward as well?
So that's
on paper.
Yeah.
Are two very separate items. One is a liaison between and able to lens on what we're doing to ensure that.
I just needed to flesh this out for clarification, just to make sure that it was.
So this report covers the options for governance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is different to a staff role as an advisor to governance.
Yeah, completely different. Yeah.
This is very good paper.
Very good.
And great that it gives the Maori State.
And it's only an information.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
The next steps.
Amanda, I see in your report, you under 5.1.1, which is on page 315, it mentions that Carlton District Council have Marae representatives on various council committees. From memory, if my memory serves me right, in the previous triennium, we had somebody from Papawai Marae come and talk to the Library Services Committee, but no other, definitely not in this triennium, have we had somebody from the Marae taking part in the Library Services meetings or anything like that. So
it's about voting representation, not advice. So this is about appointments of sitting at the table with voting rights.
But that they never have.
No. So I think this is saying that.
That's the point. I mean, in the new triennium, it's really interesting stuff here with regards to subcommittees and voting advisors and inclusion and the Māori Standing Committee. This is really good
but this particular piece of paper says that the Carlton District Council have Marae representatives on various council committees, and they state the library service. So we just wanted to make it clear that we haven't in this last year had somebody from the Marae on that committee.
We're talking about 2016, so historical, so there has been no person there.
That's the advice that Carlton have given us. So we've gone to them and asked what their models have been. So that's good to know. Thanks.
So just the timing of this report to this council, given it's their last meeting and it's probably more relevant for an incoming council. But not, this is just solely information report.
To that question, Colin, I think it's around giving you some assurance that we're doing some work and that there is some progress, that this was something that council really committed to a representation review.
Absolutely.
And that we are making progress. It's not sitting in the back pocket, not doing it.
Equally, there was actually a council action to do just about this particular issue with the Māori Standing Committee. So it was an action the council requested of us to initiate. So we were
Councillor Hay.
Thank you. Just one question. So have you had any feedback yet from the Murray Standing Committee about when they're going to come back to you?
So they've got some strategy workshops over the next couple of weeks, so some evening workshops, and they have this on the agenda to discuss, and it will enable them in a formal meeting. It's very difficult for them to have the robust wānanga that they'd like to have on these issues, and they've elected to have that discussion as part of a more wānanga format where they can have open discussion.
Yeah, so you would anticipate they might come back to you, say, the end of November, or?
Well, I hope so from that meeting, we'll have some initial feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You'll be there. Yeah, it's good to see good progress made on this. Excellent.
Right, so there's no actions as a result. Are there any other questions for Amanda on D1? No? Great, thank you, Amanda. Moving on to D2, application of the World Health Organization's Global Network of Age-Friendly Cities and Communities report. We have a mover to receive the report. Councillor Hayes, seconded Councillor Maynard. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion is carried. Are there any questions of council officers? Councillor.
No, I just, it's an interesting report because I had to read through it, but
that's good to know.
Yeah, that's a good start to the training. Excuse me, I have a question. I tried to get my head around why these things crop up from time to time, because obviously Marston and Carterton are both signed up to this. So this is relatively new, obviously. And what's driven it?
The age-friendly cities have been around since 2010.
And the strategies.
So we've got the appointment of our positive ageing advisor across the 3 councils, and she wrote our positive ageing strategy. And it's an opportunity to give some, I guess, mana to that strategy and just say we're committing at a global level to being in a positive ageing city. And there's a minimum amount of reporting that we have to do, so it doesn't create a massive amount of extra work for her. And I think it just gives a profile to the work that she's doing.
It also gives access to the information.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so on a global basis.
Yeah, it's not just a one-way street. It actually means we're a part of international best practice.
Yeah.
We're just national.
Yep, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I hope we go back to the World Health Organization, let them know that we are doing this.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be very
I'm sure they'll be very impressed with our council leaders on a global scale.
On a global scale.
I think it's important though to look at, we have an aging demographics and
we do.
like Greytown. Say, you are seeing
More age there than anything.
you are. It stands out as a percentage of
Great done, aren't you?
aging population. We need to look at that. Yeah, sorry, Councillor West.
Oh, no, I was.
Councillor Hay.
So the information potentially we can get back, there could be some really creative solutions in different towns and cities around the world that we could say, hey, we can use that in our district. So, and the fact is the report, the membership is free. So it seems to me a great.
As well, being a 3 council initiative, we're all singing for the same.
Yeah.
I worry about
Councillor Colenso, you have something?
No, I think it's
probably about
great.
age-friendly cities.
Yeah.
We're not a
Age-friendly cities.
It's good.
But you have what
Age-friendly city. Is that where old people would go? Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Being part of our strategy right from the beginning, it's really great to see that we're incorporating the World Health Organization and taking them on board as well. So it's taking us on board. So great.
How are we doing for time?
I just got a quick question, actually.
Yes.
Does making an application to the World Health Organization in any way commit our council and our community to having to implement policies or any of the other World Health Organizations? So it's it's only effectively information sharing only.
And and I guess it's that it does give a bit of momentum and authority to it. The reporting is just how you do it, rather than you must do.
Yes.
So it's best practice. So this is what it could look like in a really good environment. How are you tracking along that journey?
Yeah.
Rather than
So we're not interested in determination through the World Health Organization.
I'm just interested in the fact that the World Health Organization is not a regulatory body.
No.
Is increasing its sphere of influence within central and local government. And I'm just really intrigued to understand whether this is actually something which is right for our community to actually to a non-regulatory body, because we think we're going to get good information back.
The data we provide is publicly available. There's nothing
Nothing
confidential.
new.
No. It would be all stuff that we'd be reporting through our positive aging strategy anyway.
That's right. I'm just trying to understand.
Very strategic and high level.
They're probably more interested in Gore than us too.
Okay, so we're
Aging's not describing an age bracket. If you look at our aging strategy, it's actually a number of age groups that it's looking to cater for.
right. We'll move on to before lunch. We're very close now. Thank you very much, Amanda. To the action items report. Do we have someone move to receive the action items?
Yeah.
Thank you, Pam. Second with Councillor West. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion is carried. So any questions of progress on anything here? Councillor Maynard.
I'd just like clarification, like, 420, they said that they got GWRC to give more info. David Boone has been contacted. No, and then it says 3 different months, no new updates, no new updates, no new updates. Can this be closed? It's like, well, we haven't got an answer yet. So can we just ensure that that stays open?
There was a question back in 22 about
Why we were
I've
wanting it.
request
So we went
clarification.
back and explained that we need to know what the asset management planning is for the fact that as a rural council, we want to know when it comes to regards to forestry, logging trucks, impacts on rural roads, safety, future costs. And that's what we were asking, and there hasn't been any information given to us, so please don't close
So we've
that.
clarified it and we're not going to close it unless we
Thank you.
have agreement. So we'll take that on board.
But the key question of clarification was around this was something that was to be picked up in a rating review.
Yep.
So there was a source data to say, is this, because that's a comment, info is to be directed to rating review on the site. So
Right? This doesn't say anything about the rating review.
On the outcome of the appeal to the court. One of the councils has rated
Why,
a
right?
special rate,
But the rating review?
and we're stuck
Okay,
waiting
one at a time.
for the appeal to go through court.
Yeah, there's a secret. Matthew.
But we just wanted to clarify what, this is information that we would gather, feed into the decision around the rating review.
No, we were asking for this report because to be able to ensure that we're making correct decisions on what we're doing when it came to rural roading, and knowing that a lot of the places we're coming up with the additional forestry work and everything that's actually put in here.
Yeah.
That's what we were asking. So we wanted to reporting on roading, asset management planning, what that was looking like for around heavy vehicle use. And that was what information that we were asking for. It probably will go into the rating, let's be honest, like that will probably be something that will concern rates. However, it just needs to make sure that we keep it open.
I think you're right, because I had conflicting information. I think we had a question of our roading team, and the comment was, oh no, it doesn't actually damage as much as you think. Well, it'd be nice to know exactly what.
That means.
Yeah. In order for us to then look at cost recovery for commercial activity.
Or putting more money in it, long-term or annual plan time to cope with that happening on the.
Okay, so.
So we'll leave that open.
Yep.
We'll do a report to the assets managers when that comes through. 435, I'd say that we can actually close that one off now, given the report today.
Yes.
Originated.
Harry, I've got a question. 739. So looking at that, and they're undergoing a purchase agreement. So are you thinking we're virtually done that? It's going to be satisfied?
Nothing's agreed until we actually get the purchase agreement signed. Yeah, and so we're not going to stop the road until we've actually got the money in the bank.
But what I mean is that's being undertaken right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Russell was saying.
So basically our lawyers are now talking to them.
Excellent.
We're making progress.
Finally.
Taking a while.
Can I ask a question on 534? This is the design guide, and I see here design guide to be considered within Wairarapa Combined District Plan. There's nothing gone to the district plan about design guides. I know that Greytown Heritage have produced a suggested design guide, but that's sitting there because it has no mandate from anyone in the community or within council. So how is that, if that group wants to proceed with that, how does that get formalised? Because right now it's a group who have produced a guide, but it has no standing.
This is not just for Greytown. It's
No, well, exactly. But this is talking about putting it into the district-wide plan, which it has not been. No design guide has been put.
No, it's not saying to put it in, it's to consider it, and whether or not we would like that additional bylaw. So I think there's a bit of consultation to go before.
But the question is, what happens with this? It's been put out there.
If someone has a design.
Yeah, councillor is correct. I mean, amongst the mix of topics within the district plan review discussion has been topics being raised for discussion with a mix of views. So we need to check further on that and really table it as to get that definite answer as to are they committed to design guides and see the merit of them or not. And that will be brought back and it will hopefully close off that item. But there is a mix of views on the merits and relevant design guides. Should they sit within the plan? Should they sit outside? Council permits raise the relative merit of heritage groups in the local community and of the advisors. The guides topic has been raised, but it needs further anchoring.
So it's in progress. We'll still come forward and
No, it's not in progress at the moment. That's the point. It's sitting in limbo as to where to from now.
So perhaps Mr. O'Leary, when might we see something or a report on that?
What I can do is further press the point with political consultants being used for the district plan review and get a definite response and share that with councillors. That would be helpful.
I'm probably a bit more concerned about that, I suppose, that if a town or a group within a town comes up with a guide, which Heritage Greytown has, for example, it needs to somehow get legitimacy from within Greytown before it goes anywhere. And I'm not quite sure how that process would be followed.
Can I just talk to your point for a moment, Alistair, that actually has a significant buy-in. I'm concerned that the perception is that it's just a small, limited.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Because they have had a significant buy-in into
There's been no consultation on the community to say, do we want this? Yes, there may well have been talk within that group.
Considerable, but possibly not for.
Down into a specific as opposed to the general, but I'm sure that there will be no passing of any design guides without what we see as acceptable council consultation or buy-in with the community. So,
and that's how do we progress?
We get that to a particular level. We'll keep that live, Russell, and see if we can get some progress on that.
Yes. 552. The budgetary impact of removing Wellington Water from Featherston. Yes, that did come to assets and services, and from there it went to Maori Standing and Featherston Community Board. And now, unfortunately, that meeting was never held because we had a tangi halfway through. So that to my mind is still a live debate. And is not being agreed to, because I know there's both Maori Standing and Featherston Community Board, and we had a discussion at the Community Board about this, where that should go. So I'd rather, just to make it a point, Community Board is meeting next week.
Yeah.
I don't know when Maori Standing.
It's been last week. Last week.
At the last meeting, but we've got 2 workshops and they did have a commitment.
It'll come to that.
Yeah.
Because Featherston was going to join with them at that discussion. So just to make sure that that is not agreed.
Mr. Wilson, could you make sure that that's.
That discussion.
That wording has changed.
Yeah.
Happy to meet next week and discuss it, that's right. And Maori Standing.
Thank you. Amanda, yes.
Sorry. For you, the Māori Standing Committee made it very clear that they wanted to do it by themselves.
Yes, appreciate it. And Community Board, very clear they want to do it.
Councillor Fox.
Hi, just talking about action item 420, there's a conversation at the bottom there saying clarification on whether this item can be closed has been requested. And it was around heavy vehicle use on smaller rural roads.
Just what I was.
I know, but I want to add to that because I don't know that it can be closed. And the reason for that further is because of some of the issues happening around Greytown at the moment with pulling metal out of the river around Parkway, and it's not going away.
Yeah.
And that continuously comes up in the community to resolve that. I don't actually think.
I think we've agreed that it's not going to be closed and we want additional information. With respect to the Papaway consent, we have an issue, Papaway, we need to flick an email through to the CEO to ensure that consent conditions are being adhered to. We've had a problem with this before. We need to raise the issue to and then put in another examination of consent conditions and appropriate mitigation.
Totally agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Can I, just on that, Harry?
So, right, 409.
I'll come back.
Very, very pleased. That's one about more detail on Destination Wairarapa and the data on expenditure. I think there were some reports that come out.
Yes.
I think this is really important for us. And I'm just wondering whether the ones that have just come out have actually updated.
Yeah, it's 2 parts. I think it's not the reason for that was to ask if there are purchases of additional income information streams, which we currently don't subscribe to, that may give us more in depth as opposed to reporting the status quo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, Alistair.
Yeah, Harry, just on that consent with the Papaway metal extraction, could you potentially speak to the CEO, because it's a Greater Wellington Regional Council consent? I know that when I was at Oldfields, we part of our consent issues were publicly notifying affected parties well in advance of when these things were occurring. It's success that's not happening now down at Papaway at all.
So if you just give me information on that, I followed that up last time with Fabian's Road. We've got a resolution on that. There was real impact from the river extraction on Fabian's Road. So happy to follow that one up again, but someone just needs to give me the information.
Hours of darkness and a loop road as opposed to funneling down one. Councillor Maynard, you had a question.
Just a query with 129. One of the main things that was on there, work in progress to increase road safety. One of the main reasons that's on there is because of speed, and also the fact these were things were put on here because they were taken out of the long-term plan. Now, I'm not sure why it says action when we know that the roading and the speed on rural roads hasn't been done yet. So can we please reopen that as well? That's not actioned. Some of them is, which is fantastic. There's some, this is great to see that there have been some things that are safety focused, but this was all about the road safety on rural roads and why we didn't need to do the sealing on rural roads. So to me, I don't believe that this should be actioned because that hasn't been done yet.
Okay, the comment's been made is that action was specific to 2021, 2022, and it's so you have to have a new action item to bring it through to 22, 23.
Okay, is it possible?
8 other roads in. So let's that. So we have a new number to provide overwork in the South, work completed in the 2022-23 year, and let's.
Throughout South Wairarapa, same wording.
Yeah.
Same wording, and you can add, but also put in with regards to the road that was meant to be looked at, like decreasing speed.
So if we could, at the next council meeting, we'll add the roads that we feel need to be examined.
No, I think it still needs to say the same thing, all rural, on the rural roads throughout South Wairarapa.
Raise particular issues to be a focus, okay?
But yes, that'll be fine, as long as we know that there's the new action point being put in place that's okay.
Amy's already got it.
Thank you, Amy.
Cool. I was saying, Rebecca.
A question for you. Yeah. Action item 137, and you may be able to update us on this because I don't. We got Mr. Corbett here. No, meeting schedule with council officers regarding pensioner health.
I've held that with Stefan and our new amenities manager, so we had to let him get his feet under the desk. Stefan is going to prepare a report. Additionally, I've requested a meeting with Kāinga Ora with regards to their intentions on social housing in the Wairarapa, so that will be an upcoming meeting. We are mindful that both Stefan and James are relatively stressed at the moment with regards to workload, so we're fitting this in within. But as I mentioned to them, it's an issue we really should have addressed 5 to 10 years ago, and I'd hate to wait another 3 years and still have it not resolved with regards to a future direction. So that is in progress, and a report will come to council in time. And more specifically, talking about existing senior housing land that's been undeveloped for 30 years and the actions we need to take to address that. So you may remember we had a cast report, Lisa, and but that's only one provider or one end user of land, one option. And I think this would end up going into consultation with an LTP. Yeah.
Quite a lot of work done on this quite early on, and
again, that whole situation's changed.
No, it's not. Some of it's still relevant, isn't it, Colin?
The listening environment has changed.
That's the only thing that's changed.
Right, we all.
And underneath.
One more, Alistair?
One more, the relocation of the information centre to Cobblestone. I'm not sure, Amanda, is that your one? For the Greytown Community Board to provide an update, that it hasn't come up in the so the last time it came up in the Greytown Community Board was about 3 meetings ago, which the Greytown Community Board said, yeah, that's a great idea. And then nothing's happened ever since. So
I think it was going to one of the community groups boards, the decision.
Cobblestone.
That's going to.
And we haven't heard anything.
No. So they've got to have a request to council to do. I think it's also mixed in with Greytown Sports and Leisure at their location and their resourcing of an information centre. So we just haven't seen a proposal, and that is the community board needs to endorse.
Okay, so well, how do we progress this from our end?
It's their baby to come to us to request.
To change.
Yeah, no, we didn't. It's up to Cobblestones to come forward to the community board to have a request, which is then endorsed and sent to council.
And I think it's worthwhile noting that their previous chair has just recently departed, and there's a new co-chair arrangement happening. And it's Cobblestone.
I'm surprised we haven't seen something. Yeah.
Well, then do we just close this one up until they open it again?
Leave it.
You don't have any up.
I think they're still just mulling through the options. So,
So should that be saying Greytown Community Board to provide an update, or Cobblestones to provide the Greytown Community Board with an update?
It's either. It's got to come through the community meeting.
Yes.
Let's leave it there because it's nice to know, because it actually has impact on the community.
And it's nice actually that, just as an observation, that our actions list has come down significantly from when we started as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
We used to do a lot of work.
And just to give you an update, there is no update on aerial surveying.
Thank you. But it's still on there, right?
We're all done with them.
We did send around a note to councillors, just,
You did?
you know, where things were up to. So you did probably about a month ago.
Yep.
Yeah. So with that, I'm going to adjourn for lunch and we'll reconvene. It's 1:20. Are you comfortable with that? For now?
I'm fine with that.
Thanks, guys.
Oh,
Take off in the middle of someone's report.
must be advertised.
Right, okay.
I mean, we don't, this is, we don't have to be back for 1:30.
Oh, sorry, yeah.